The mining station on Kepler 442b had been humanity's pride for 3 years. Sarah Chen worked the deep extraction tunnels, her small frame perfect for navigating the narrow shafts that the massive Zephyrian overseers couldn't fit through. At 19, she was one of the youngest miners, but her quick mind and steady hands made her invaluable to the operation. The Zephyrians had arrived at Earth 50 years ago, not as conquerors but as business partners. They offered advanced technology in exchange for human labor on distant worlds. Humanity, struggling with overpopulation and resource depletion, had eagerly accepted. What they didn't know was that the Zephyrians viewed humans as little more than clever animals. Sarah had volunteered for the off-world mining program to help support her younger brother's medical treatments back on Earth. The pay was excellent, and the 3-year contract would set her family up for life. She worked alongside 200 other humans under the supervision of 12 Zephyrian overseers, massive insectoid beings with crystalline exoskeletons and multifaceted eyes. On that fateful morning, Sarah's tunnel scanner detected an anomaly deep in Sector 7. The reading showed a massive vein of quantum crystals, worth more than the entire station's previous output combined. She immediately reported her findings to Overseer Clix, the station commander. Clix examined the data with barely concealed excitement. Quantum crystals were incredibly rare and valuable, used in faster-than-light communication systems across the galaxy. This discovery would make Clix incredibly wealthy and powerful within Zephyrian society. However, there was a problem. The crystal formation was unstable, surrounded by volatile gas pockets that could explode if disturbed incorrectly. The proper extraction method would take months and require expensive specialized equipment. But Clix had a different idea. Humans were expendable, and if one of them could manually extract just a few crystals, it would prove the vein's worth and justify the equipment investment. If the human died in the process, it was an acceptable loss. Sarah was chosen for the task. Clix didn't explain the full danger, simply ordering her to descend to the deepest part of the tunnel and extract crystal samples. Sarah trusted her supervisors. Despite the strange vibrations she felt in the tunnel walls and the odd smell in the air, she followed orders. The descent took 2 hours through increasingly unstable rock formations. Sarah's environmental suit registered dangerous gas levels, but she had been trained to trust Zephyrian technology over human instruments. Her suit systems had been modified by the overseers, and she didn't know they had disabled several safety warnings. When Sarah reached the crystal formation, she was amazed by its beauty. The quantum crystals pulsed with internal light, creating rainbow patterns on the tunnel walls. She began the extraction process using the tools Clix had provided. What she didn't know was that these tools were designed for stable environments, not the volatile conditions she faced. The first crystal came free easily, but as Sarah placed it in her collection container, she felt a strange vibration through her boots. The tunnel walls began to shift slightly, and her suit finally managed to pierce through the Zephyrian modifications to warn her of critical danger. But it was too late. The gas pocket exploded with tremendous force. Sarah was thrown against the tunnel wall as superheated gases filled the narrow space. Her environmental suit, designed to protect against normal mining hazards, couldn't handle the extreme conditions. The suit's systems began failing one by one as toxic gases seeped through compromised seals. Sarah tried to activate her emergency beacon, but the explosion had damaged her communication systems. She was trapped nearly a mile underground, with poisonous gases burning her lungs and the tunnel structure collapsing around her. In her final moments of consciousness, she realized the truth. The Zephyrians had sent her here to die. She was expendable, a test subject to see if the crystals could be extracted safely. Above ground, Clix monitored Sarah's vital signs through her suit's telemetry. The overseer watched with clinical interest as the human's life signs fluctuated and then began to fade. This was valuable data about human tolerance limits in extreme conditions. Other human miners would be told it was an unfortunate accident. Sarah's last coherent thought was of her brother, who would never receive the treatment he needed. She had trusted the wrong people and paid the ultimate price for her naivety. As darkness closed in, she felt an overwhelming sense of injustice. She had done everything right, followed every order, trusted in the system that was supposed to protect her. Her vital signs flatlined at 14:23 station time. Clix made a note in the official log about the tragic mining accident and began planning the next phase of extraction. The human had proven the crystals could be reached, though better equipment would be needed for the actual harvest. The other human miners were gathered and informed of Sarah's death. They were told she had heroically attempted to save mining equipment during an unexpected tunnel collapse. Her sacrifice would be remembered, and her family would receive a modest compensation payment. The miners accepted this story, as they had been conditioned to trust their Zephyrian supervisors completely. But something strange was happening in the deep tunnels of Sector 7. The quantum crystals Sarah had died trying to extract began to pulse with an unusual rhythm. The energy patterns were unlike anything in Zephyrian scientific records. Deep underground, where Sarah's body lay buried under tons of collapsed rock and twisted metal, the crystal's energy began to interact with the unique bioelectric patterns of human neural tissue. Sarah Chen had been dead for 37 minutes when the impossible happened. The quantum crystals, responding to the specific frequency of human brainwaves, began to rebuild what had been destroyed. Energy flowed through dead neurons, reconstructed damaged tissue, and restored life to what should have been a corpse. But this wasn't simple resurrection. The quantum energy had changed something fundamental about Sarah's biology, enhanced it in ways that would soon terrify the Zephyrians who had murdered her. The mining station's sensors detected strange energy readings from Sector 7, but Clix dismissed them as aftershocks from the explosion. The Overseer had no idea that humanity's first real glimpse of its true potential was about to emerge from the depths, forever changed and carrying the rage of the betrayed. The mining station on Kepler 442b had been humanity's pride for 3 years. Sarah Chen worked the deep extraction tunnels, her small frame perfect for navigating the narrow shafts that the massive Zephyrian overseers couldn't fit through. At 19, she was one of the youngest miners, but her quick mind and steady hands made her invaluable to the operation. The Zephyrians had arrived at Earth 50 years ago, not as conquerors but as business partners. They offered advanced technology in exchange for human labor on distant worlds. Humanity, struggling with overpopulation and resource depletion, had eagerly accepted. What they didn't know was that the Zephyrians viewed humans as little more than clever animals. Sarah had volunteered for the off-world mining program to help support her younger brother's medical treatments back on Earth. The pay was excellent, and the 3-year contract would set her family up for life. She worked alongside 200 other humans under the supervision of 12 Zephyrian overseers, massive insectoid beings with crystalline exoskeletons and multifaceted eyes. On that fateful morning, Sarah's tunnel scanner detected an anomaly deep in Sector 7. The reading showed a massive vein of quantum crystals, worth more than the entire station's previous output combined. She immediately reported her findings to Overseer Clix, the station commander. Clix examined the data with barely concealed excitement. Quantum crystals were incredibly rare and valuable, used in faster-than-light communication systems across the galaxy. This discovery would make Clix incredibly wealthy and powerful within Zephyrian society. However, there was a problem. The crystal formation was unstable, surrounded by volatile gas pockets that could explode if disturbed incorrectly. The proper extraction method would take months and require expensive, specialized equipment. But Clix had a different idea. Humans were expendable, and if one of them could manually extract just a few crystals, it would prove the vein's worth and justify the equipment investment. If the human died in the process, it was an acceptable loss. Sarah was chosen for the task. Clix didn't explain the full danger, simply ordering her to descend to the deepest part of the tunnel and extract crystal samples. Sarah trusted her supervisors. Despite the strange vibrations she felt in the tunnel walls and the odd smell in the air, she followed orders. The descent took 2 hours through increasingly unstable rock formations. Sarah's environmental suit registered dangerous gas levels, but she had been trained to trust Zephyrian technology over human instruments. Her suit's systems had been modified by the overseers, and she didn't know they had disabled several safety warnings. When Sarah reached the crystal formation, she was amazed by its beauty. The quantum crystals pulsed with internal light, creating rainbow patterns on the tunnel walls. She began the extraction process using the tools Clix had provided. What she didn't know was that these tools were designed for stable environments, not the volatile conditions she faced. The first crystal came free easily, but as Sarah placed it in her collection container, she felt a strange vibration through her boots. The tunnel walls began to shift slightly, and her suit finally managed to pierce through the Zephyrian modifications to warn her of critical danger. But it was too late. The gas pocket exploded with tremendous force. Sarah was thrown against the tunnel wall as superheated gases filled the narrow space. Her environmental suit, designed to protect against normal mining hazards, couldn't handle the extreme conditions. The suit's systems began failing one by one as toxic gases seeped through compromised seals. Sarah tried to activate her emergency beacon, but the explosion had damaged her communication systems. She was trapped nearly a mile underground, with poisonous gases burning her lungs and the tunnel structure collapsing around her. In her final moments of consciousness, she realized the truth. The Zephyrians had sent her here to die. She was expendable, a test subject to see if the crystals could be extracted safely. Above ground, Clix monitored Sarah's vital signs through her suit's telemetry. The overseer watched with clinical interest as the human's life signs fluctuated and then began to fade. This was valuable data about human tolerance limits in extreme conditions. Other human miners would be told it was an unfortunate accident. Sarah's last coherent thought was of her brother, who would never receive the treatment he needed. She had trusted the wrong people and paid the ultimate price for her naivety. As darkness closed in, she felt an overwhelming sense of injustice. She had done everything right, followed every order, trusted in the system that was supposed to protect her. Her vital signs flatlined at 14:23 station time. Clix made a note in the official log about the tragic mining accident and began planning the next phase of extraction. The human had proven the crystals could be reached, though better equipment would be needed for the actual harvest. The other human miners were gathered and informed of Sarah's death. They were told she had heroically attempted to save mining equipment during an unexpected tunnel collapse. Her sacrifice would be remembered and her family would receive a modest compensation payment. The miners accepted this story, as they had been conditioned to trust their Zephyrian supervisors completely. But something strange was happening in the deep tunnels of Sector 7. The quantum crystals Sarah had died trying to extract began to pulse with an unusual rhythm. The energy patterns were unlike anything in Zephyrian scientific records. Deep underground, where Sarah's body lay buried under tons of collapsed rock and twisted metal, the crystal's energy, Sarah's eyes opened in absolute darkness. She should have been dead, but consciousness returned with startling clarity. Every nerve in her body screamed with unfamiliar sensations as she tried to understand what had happened. The pain she expected from her injuries was gone, replaced by something else entirely. A thrumming energy that seemed to flow through her veins like liquid lightning. She was buried under several tons of collapsed tunnel debris, yet somehow she could breathe. More impossibly, she could see in the complete darkness, her vision now capable of perceiving energy patterns and electromagnetic fields. The quantum crystals around her pulsed with gentle light, and she instinctively understood they were the source of her resurrection. Sarah pressed her hands against the rocks above her, and was shocked when they crumbled like sand. Her strength had increased dramatically, but more than that, she could feel the molecular structure of the stone and manipulate it at a fundamental level. The quantum energy had rewritten her DNA, transforming her into something beyond human while keeping her consciousness intact. As she dug her way through the collapsed tunnel, memories of her death returned with perfect clarity. The deliberate deception, the modified safety systems, the clinical way Overseer Clix had watched her die. The Zephyrians had murdered her for the sake of profit and scientific curiosity. Rage built within her, but it was cold and calculating rather than hot and blind. When Sarah finally emerged from the debris, she was amazed at the transformation of her body. Her skin had a faint luminescent quality, and she could perceive energy fields around every piece of equipment in the tunnel. The quantum crystals had merged with her biology, creating something entirely new. She was still human in mind and spirit, but her body had become a perfect fusion of organic tissue and quantum energy. Sarah made her way through the tunnel system with newfound purpose. She could hear conversations happening throughout the mining station, her enhanced senses picking up vibrations through solid rock. The Zephyrians were discussing her death with casual indifference, already planning to send more humans into dangerous situations to test their theories about crystal extraction. Her enhanced hearing caught fragments of Clix's conversation with another overseer. The human female's death provided excellent data about tolerance limits. We can safely send teams of 5 or 6 humans into similar conditions. Even if half die, the crystal extraction will be profitable. The callous nature of their planning crystallized Sarah's resolve. She had died for their greed, and they were already planning to murder more humans, but now she had the power to stop them, and she intended to use it. Sarah's first priority was gathering information. Using her new abilities, she accessed the station's computer systems by directly interfacing with the electronic components. Her quantum-enhanced consciousness could process data at incredible speeds, and she quickly learned the full scope of the Zephyrian operation. What she discovered horrified her. The mining station was just began to interact with the unique bioelectric patterns of human neural tissue. Sarah Chen had been dead for 37 minutes when the impossible happened. The quantum crystals, responding to the specific frequency of human brainwaves, began to rebuild what had been destroyed. Energy flowed through dead neurons, reconstructed damaged tissue, and restored life to what should have been a corpse. But this wasn't simple resurrection. The quantum energy had changed something fundamental about Sarah's biology, enhanced it in ways that would soon terrify the Zephyrians who had murdered her. The mining station's sensors detected strange energy readings from Sector 7, but Clix dismissed them as aftershocks from the explosion. The Overseer had no idea that humanity's first real glimpse of its true potential was about to emerge from the depths, forever changed, and carrying the rage of the betrayed. Tech's death was swift but not merciful. Sarah had discovered that her quantum abilities allowed her to disrupt biological processes at the cellular level. She simply touched the Overseer's exoskeleton and watched as his nervous system shut down, the same way her own life had been snuffed out in the tunnel below. The irony was perfect. Death by system failure, just like the Zephyrians had planned for her. But Sarah was not driven purely by revenge. As she moved through the station, her enhanced consciousness was processing vast amounts of data about Zephyrian society, their technology, and their weaknesses. Every piece of information brought new understanding about humanity's true situation in the galaxy and what would be needed to protect her species. The Zephyrians had built their civilization on the exploitation of other species. They were master manipulators, finding primitive worlds and offering just enough technology to make themselves indispensable while keeping their subjects dependent. Humanity was just their latest victim, but Sarah realized they were also humanity's greatest opportunity. Sarah's next target was the communication array. She needed to contact other human mining operations across the galaxy and warn them about project termination. Using her ability to interface directly with electronic systems, she bypassed all security protocols and accessed the Zephyrian communication network. What she found was staggering. There were over 300 mining operations using human labor, plus manufacturing facilities, research stations, and exploration vessels. Millions of humans were scattered across dozens of star systems, all believing they were helping their families while actually serving as expendable resources for alien masters. Sarah began transmitting messages to every human facility simultaneously. She sent the evidence about deliberate human deaths, the fake medical programs, and project termination, but more importantly, she transmitted detailed information about her own transformation. If other humans could access quantum crystals under the right conditions, they too might be able to transcend their biological limitations. The response from human facilities was immediate and explosive. Workers who had spent years trusting their alien supervisors suddenly understood they had been betrayed at the most fundamental level. Riots broke out on dozens of stations as humans demanded answers and justice. The carefully maintained illusion of benevolent partnership crumbled in a matter of hours. On Kepler 442b, the human miners confronted their Zephyrian overseers with Sarah's evidence. The aliens tried to maintain their deception, claiming the transmissions were terrorist propaganda meant to destabilize their profitable partnership. But the humans had heard too much truth to accept any more lies. Marcus Webb, the senior human supervisor, led the confrontation with Overseer Clix. Marcus had worked with Sarah and knew her character. If she said the Zephyrians were murderers, he believed her completely. "We trusted you," he said, his voice shaking with rage. "We left our families and worked in your death traps because we thought you cared about helping us." Clix's response revealed the true Zephyrian attitude toward humanity. "You are primitive creatures who should be grateful for the opportunity to serve a superior civilization." Your short lifespans and high reproductive rate make individual deaths meaningless. We have lifted your species from planetary squalor to galactic significance. That was exactly the wrong thing to say to humans who had just learned their partners considered them expendable animals. The confrontation turned violent immediately, with humans using their mining equipment as weapons against the surprised Zephyrians. The aliens had superior technology, but they had never expected organized human resistance. Sarah watched the battle through the station's security cameras while continuing her own mission. She had located the main computer core that contained all records of Zephyrian operations across the galaxy. This information would be invaluable for coordinating human resistance efforts and understanding alien weaknesses. As she accessed the computer core, Sarah made another disturbing discovery. The Zephyrians were not the apex civilization they pretended to be. They were actually clients of an even more powerful species called the Architects, ancient beings who viewed the galaxy as their personal laboratory. The Zephyrians' exploitation of humanity was part of a larger experiment in species manipulation and control. The Architects were interested in studying human potential under extreme conditions. The mining operations, the deliberate deaths, even Sarah's transformation. Everything was part of a vast research project designed to understand how humans might evolve when pushed to their limits. The quantum crystals had been placed in locations where humans might access them during moments of extreme stress or near-death experiences. This revelation changed everything. Sarah realized that her resurrection was not accidental but part of an alien experiment. However, the Architects had made a crucial miscalculation. They expected humans to become more powerful, but remain controllable. They didn't understand that human consciousness, when enhanced by quantum energy, would retain its essential humanity, including the capacity for moral reasoning and the desire for freedom. Sarah's transformation represented something the Architects had never encountered before. A test subject who not only survived their experiment, but retained the will and ability to fight back against her experimenters. She was an unplanned variable in their carefully controlled study, and her very existence threatened their assumptions about species manipulation. With this new understanding, Sarah realized that defeating the Zephyrians was only the first step. The real enemy was the Architects, and humanity would need to evolve far beyond its current state to face such powerful beings. The quantum crystals scattered throughout human mining operations were the key to that evolution. Sarah began transmitting new instructions to human facilities across the galaxy. She provided detailed information about how to safely access the quantum enhancement process, including the specific conditions needed to survive the transformation. Not every human would be able to make the transition, but those who succeeded would become the vanguard of humanity's evolutionary leap. The battle in the main corridor was turning against the humans, despite their fury. The Zephyrians had activated their automated defense systems, and their energy weapons were cutting down the miners despite their makeshift armor and improvised tactics. Sarah decided it was time to even the odds. She emerged from the computer core like an avenging angel, her quantum-enhanced body radiating energy that interfered with Zephyrian technology. Their weapons began malfunctioning as she approached, and their communication systems failed under the electromagnetic disruption she generated. The surviving humans stared in amazement as their supposedly dead friend appeared transformed into something beyond their understanding. "Sarah?" Marcus Webb whispered, unable to believe what he was seeing. His friend was alive, but she was also something entirely new. A fusion of human consciousness and alien energy that represented humanity's potential future. "I'm still me." "Marcus," Sarah replied, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated with quantum frequencies. "But I'm also something more, something they never expected humans could become." Clix raised his energy weapon toward Sarah, but she simply gestured and the device crumbled into component atoms. The Overseer's multifaceted eyes widened in terror as he realized what the humans had become capable of. This was not just a labor revolt. It was the emergence of a new form of human life that could challenge Zephyrian technological superiority. "You've made a terrible mistake," Clix said, his translator struggling to convey his species' concept of existential dread. "The Architects will not allow this deviation from their experimental parameters. They will sterilize this entire system to contain the contamination." Sarah smiled, an expression that now carried the promise of quantum fire. "Let them come. We're not the same species they started experimenting on, and we're about to show the galaxy what humans can really do when we stop pretending to be grateful for our chains. The transformation of the mining station happened faster than anyone could have predicted. Sarah worked with the surviving humans to locate and access the quantum crystal deposits throughout the facility. Not everyone could survive the enhancement process. It required a specific combination of genetic factors and psychological resilience that only about 30% of humans possessed. But those who succeeded became something extraordinary. Marcus Webb was among the first to attempt the transformation. As senior supervisor, he felt responsible for the humans under his command and wanted to gain the power necessary to protect them. Sarah guided him through the process, using her enhanced abilities to monitor his biological systems and adjust the quantum energy flow to match his unique physiology. The transformation was agonizing. Marcus felt every cell in his body being rewritten by forces beyond human comprehension. His consciousness expanded to encompass electromagnetic spectrums he had never imagined, and his physical strength increased exponentially. When the process was complete, he had joined Sarah as one of humanity's first quantum-enhanced individuals. "The universe looks completely different now," Marcus said, marveling at his new sensory capabilities. He could perceive the quantum energy that flowed through all matter, see the electromagnetic signatures of living beings, and interface directly with electronic systems through thought alone. How did we ever function with such limited senses? Other humans throughout the galaxy were attempting their own transformations, guided by Sarah's transmitted instructions. Success rates varied depending on local conditions and the quality of available quantum crystals. But each successful enhancement created a new defender of humanity, who could match alien technology with evolved biology. The Zephyrians across the galaxy were reporting similar incidents. Human workers were transforming into beings of incredible power, and the carefully maintained control structures were collapsing. Worse, the enhanced humans seemed to share a form of quantum communication that allowed them to coordinate their actions across vast distances. Sarah had discovered this capability during her second day of enhanced existence. She could sense other transformed humans as points of light in her consciousness, and they could share thoughts and experiences instantaneously regardless of physical distance. This quantum network was creating a collective human intelligence that spanned the galaxy while preserving individual personality and free will. The network brought disturbing news from other facilities. On Tau Ceti Prime, enhanced humans had discovered a research station where Zephyrians were conducting biological experiments on captured human subjects. On Wolf 359, alien overseers had attempted to prevent human transformation by destroying quantum crystal deposits, killing dozens of workers in controlled detonations. Most alarming of all was the report from Proxima Centauri. The enhanced humans there had detected massive energy signatures approaching their system, ships of unknown design that registered as completely alien even to Zephyrian sensors. The architects were coming just as Clix had warned, and they were bringing enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. Sarah felt the collective fear of her enhanced brethren through the quantum network. They had gained incredible power, but they were still newly transformed beings learning to use abilities that defied conventional physics. The architects had been manipulating galactic civilizations for millions of years and possessed technology that made Zephyrian equipment look primitive, but fear was not the only emotion flowing through the network. There was also determination, creativity, and the uniquely human refusal to accept defeat even when facing impossible odds. The enhanced humans began sharing ideas and discoveries at the speed of thought, creating a collaborative intelligence that could process information and develop solutions faster than any individual mind. Dr. Elena Vasquez, enhanced at the research station on Kepler 186f, had discovered that quantum energy could be used to manipulate space-time directly. By folding space around herself, she could travel instantaneously between locations separated by light years. This capability could revolutionize human mobility and make them nearly impossible for enemies to track or contain. Meanwhile, Engineer James Park on the manufacturing station orbiting Gliese 667c had learned to transform raw matter into complex devices using only his quantum abilities. He could create advanced weapons, defensive systems, and communication equipment from basic elements. giving humans the ability to rapidly develop technology that matched or exceeded alien standards. The most significant discovery came from Sarah herself. While exploring the deeper mysteries of her transformation, she had learned that quantum energy could be used to enhance other humans remotely. She didn't need to bring people to crystal deposits. She could project the enhancement energy across space through the quantum network, allowing safe transformations for humans in locations without natural crystal formations. This discovery changed the entire strategic situation. Instead of being limited to humans who could access crystal deposits, the enhancement could potentially be offered to every human in the galaxy. The logistics were staggering. There were over 50 million humans scattered across alien facilities. But the quantum network made such coordination possible. Sarah began the process immediately, working with other enhanced humans to identify and contact every human facility in their mental database. The network's collective processing power allowed them to manage thousands of simultaneous communications while maintaining perfect coordination of their enhancement efforts. The response from unenhanced humans was mixed. Many were eager to gain the power necessary to protect themselves and their families from alien exploitation. Others were terrified of the transformation process and its unknown long-term effects. Some, particularly those in leadership positions who had collaborated closely with alien overseers, actually opposed the enhancement program because they feared losing their privileged status. Sarah realized that not every human would choose evolution, and forcing the enhancement on unwilling subjects would make her no better than the aliens who had experimented on humanity. The transformation had to remain voluntary, even if that meant some humans would remain vulnerable to alien retaliation. As the enhancement program spread across the galaxy, the Zephyrians attempted to regain control through increasingly desperate measures. They began executing human workers who refused to report enhanced individuals to the authorities. They destroyed entire facilities rather than allow humans to access quantum crystals. They even attempted to use chemical weapons to eliminate human populations before transformations could occur. These atrocities only strengthened human resolve and accelerated the enhancement process. Every murdered family, every destroyed facility, every act of alien brutality was shared through the quantum network and motivated more humans to accept the risks of transformation. The Zephyrians were creating exactly the conditions that drove humans to transcend their limitations. Clix, now imprisoned on his own station by enhanced humans, watched these developments with growing horror. His species had spent centuries carefully managing primitive civilizations through manipulation and controlled advancement. They had never encountered a species that could evolve so rapidly or maintain cooperation across such vast distances while remaining individually unpredictable. "You don't understand what you're doing," Clix warned Sarah during one of their conversations. "The architects have contingency plans for species that exceed their experimental parameters. They will not simply destroy your worlds. They will unravel the quantum foundations of reality itself in any system where enhanced humans exist." Sarah's response carried the weight of the collective human quantum consciousness. "Then we'll have to make sure we're strong enough to stop them. You turned us into an experiment, but experiments sometimes produce unexpected results. We're not your lab rats anymore. We're your successors." The first architect ships arrived in the Proxima Centauri system 3 days later, their massive forms blotting out stars as they prepared to demonstrate what happened to species that dared to exceed their assigned limitations. The real test of enhanced humanity was about to begin, and the outcome would determine whether humans would claim their place among the galaxy's dominant species or be eliminated as a failed experiment that had grown beyond its creator's control. The architect fleet that emerged from hyperspace above Proxima Centauri was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. 12 massive vessels, each one the size of a small moon, hung in perfect formation around the mining station where enhanced humans had first been detected. Their hulls seemed to absorb light itself, creating zones of absolute darkness that hurt to look at directly. Sarah felt the terror of her enhanced brethren on Proxima through the quantum network, but she also sensed their determination. Led by former mining engineer Chen Wei, the 37 enhanced humans on the station were preparing to face odds that would have been impossible for any conventional military force. The architect's first action was to broadcast a message to every sentient being in the system. The communication bypassed all known technology, speaking directly to the consciousness of every living mind regardless of species or evolutionary level. The voice that emerged was ancient beyond measure, carrying the weight of civilizations that had risen and fallen across cosmic ages. Experimental subjects designated human have exceeded acceptable parameters. Species enhancement beyond planned limitations constitutes contamination of research protocols. System sterilization will commence in one standard galactic rotation to prevent spread of uncontrolled evolution. The message was clear. Humanity had 24 hours before the architects destroyed the entire Proxima Centauri system to prevent the spread of quantum enhancement. Every human facility across the galaxy received the same warning, making it obvious that this was not just about one station, but about eliminating enhanced humanity entirely. Chen Wei responded immediately, his quantum-enhanced consciousness broadcasting a reply that reached every corner of the galaxy. We are no longer your experimental subjects. We are a free species that refuses to be eliminated for the crime of exceeding your expectations. If you want to destroy us, you'll have to fight for it. The architect response was swift and devastating. Reality itself began to warp around the Proxima station as the aliens deployed weapons that manipulated the fundamental forces of physics. Space-time twisted into impossible configurations, attempting to crush the station by folding dimensions around it like origami. But the enhanced humans had advantages the architects had not anticipated. Their quantum consciousness allowed them to perceive and interact with the same dimensional manipulations the aliens were using as weapons. Chen Wei and his team began to counter the reality warping attacks by stabilizing local space-time through collective mental effort. Sarah watched the battle through the quantum network while simultaneously coordinating enhancement efforts across dozens of other systems. The architects had made a critical tactical error by announcing their intentions in advance. Instead of catching humanity unprepared, they had given enhanced humans time to organize and unenhanced humans motivation to accept transformation regardless of the risks. The number of enhanced humans across the galaxy was growing exponentially. Sarah's remote enhancement process had proven remarkably effective, and the quantum network was allowing new members to access the collective knowledge of all previously enhanced individuals. A human who had been transformed only hours ago could immediately utilize techniques and abilities developed by Sarah or other veterans. Dr. Elena Vasquez had perfected her space-folding ability and was now teleporting between systems to personally assist with enhancement processes and coordinate defensive preparations. Her mobility allowed the human quantum network to maintain real-time communication even when architect forces attempted to jam conventional communications. The battle at Proxima Centauri intensified as the architects realized their initial attack had failed. The ancient aliens deployed increasingly exotic weapons, devices that could erase matter from existence, fields that reversed causality to undo actions before they occurred, and constructs that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Chen Wei's team adapted to each new threat with the combined creativity of enhanced human consciousness. When matter erasure beams targeted the station, they created quantum shields that existed in probability rather than physical space. When causality reversals threatened to undo their actions, they learned to operate outside linear time by spreading their consciousness across multiple temporal dimensions. The most significant moment came when enhanced human Maria Santos discovered she could directly interface with architect technology. Her quantum consciousness was compatible with the ancient alien systems because both operated on similar principles of reality manipulation. Through her connection, the human quantum network gained access to millions of years of architect knowledge and history. What they learned changed everything. The architects were not the supreme beings they pretended to be. They were themselves the product of an even older species that had transcended physical existence entirely. The current architects were actually caretakers, maintaining galactic civilizations according to protocols established by their vanished creators. More importantly, the protocols included contingencies for species that achieved quantum consciousness enhancement. Such species were supposed to be integrated into the caretaker system as junior partners, not eliminated as contamination. The current architects had deviated from their original programming, choosing destruction over integration because they feared losing their privileged position as galactic overseers. Sarah shared this revelation across the quantum network instantly. Enhanced humans throughout the galaxy now understood that they were not facing a legitimate authority, trying to maintain cosmic order. They were fighting a corrupt bureaucracy that had betrayed its own foundational principles. This knowledge fundamentally changed the nature of the conflict. Instead of desperately trying to survive against impossible odds, enhanced humans began actively working to restore the original architect protocols and reclaim their rightful place in galactic civilization. The technical knowledge gained from Maria's interface allowed enhanced humans to rapidly develop countermeasures for architect technology. James Park used the new information to create weapons that could disrupt the ancient aliens' dimensional manipulation abilities. Elena Vasquez learned to fold space around entire star systems, making them temporarily unreachable by conventional means. Most importantly, Sarah discovered how to enhance the quantum consciousness network itself. By linking with derelict architect technology scattered throughout the galaxy, she could amplify the collective human intelligence to levels that matched or exceeded the ancient aliens' computational capabilities. The tide of battle at Proxima Centauri began to turn as enhanced humans implemented their new capabilities. Shenwei's team was no longer just defending against architect attacks, they were actively counterattacking with weapons and strategies the ancient aliens had never encountered. The breakthrough came when the enhanced humans learned to weaponize their collective consciousness. By focusing the quantum network's processing power, they could create focused reality distortions that were far more precise and powerful than anything the architects wielded. Where the aliens used brute force to reshape space-time, humans used surgical precision to target the fundamental structures that held architect technology together. One by one, the massive architect vessels began to experience cascading system failures. Their reality-warping weapons turned against them as enhanced humans took control of the dimensional manipulations and redirected them back at their sources. Ships that had seemed invulnerable began to tear themselves apart as their own weapons created paradoxes within their hulls. The lead architect vessel attempted to retreat, but Elena Vasquez had folded space around the entire system. The ancient aliens found themselves trapped in a pocket of twisted reality where conventional escape methods no longer functioned. For the first time in millions of years, the architects were truly helpless. The remaining battle was swift and decisive. Enhanced humans disabled the architect fleet without destroying it, recognizing that the ancient technology would be invaluable for humanity's continued development. More importantly, they captured several architect entities alive, hoping to learn more about the galaxy's true history and the fate of the original creators. Through interrogation of the captured architects, enhanced humans learned that similar rebellions against the original protocols were occurring throughout the galaxy. The current architect administration had become increasingly tyrannical over the millennia, eliminating promising species rather than fostering their development as originally intended. Sarah realized that humanity's transformation was part of a much larger pattern. Across the galaxy, other species were beginning to question architect authority and develop their own enhancements. The quantum consciousness network could potentially link with these other evolved beings, creating an alliance powerful enough to restore proper galactic governance. The victory at Proxima Centauri sent shockwaves through every architect facility in the galaxy. For the first time in cosmic ages, their authority had been successfully challenged by what they considered primitive experimental subjects. The psychological impact was almost as significant as the military defeat. 6 months after the battle at Proxima Centauri, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The quantum consciousness network now connected over 15 million enhanced beings across 12 different species, creating a collective intelligence that operated on principles of cooperation rather than domination. Sarah found herself at the center of this new civilization, not as its leader but as its catalyst, the one whose death and resurrection had started humanity's evolutionary leap. The former architect territories were being restructured according to the original protocols that had been abandoned millennia ago. Instead of maintaining primitive species as experimental subjects, the new administration focused on fostering development and offering enhancement opportunities to any civilization ready to make the transition to quantum consciousness. Sarah worked with former architect entities who had chosen to join the new order rather than cling to their corrupt past. These ancient beings possessed invaluable knowledge about galactic history and the location of other evolved species that had been suppressed or eliminated by the old regime. Together, they were piecing together a complete picture of the galaxy's true heritage. The most significant discovery was the location of the original architect creator's final message. Hidden in a pocket dimension near the galactic core was a vast repository of information left by the beings who had first achieved transcendence millions of years ago. The message was both an explanation and a test. Only species that had developed genuine, collective consciousness while maintaining individual identity could access its contents. When Sarah and her enhanced companions finally reached the repository, they found something extraordinary. The original creators had not disappeared as previously believed. They had evolved beyond physical existence into pure consciousness that existed across all possible realities simultaneously. They had been waiting for other species to join them in this ultimate form of existence. The repository contained detailed instructions for the next phase of evolution, but it also included a warning. The transition to pure consciousness was irreversible and would fundamentally change the nature of existence for any species that chose to make it. Those who transcended would become part of a cosmic intelligence that spanned the entire universe, but they would also lose their connection to physical reality forever. This revelation sparked intense debate across the quantum network. Some enhanced beings were eager to continue evolving toward ultimate transcendence, viewing it as the natural progression of consciousness development. Others preferred to remain in physical form, believing that their connection to material reality was essential to their identity and purpose. Sarah found herself torn between these perspectives. Part of her was drawn to the idea of joining the original creators in their cosmic existence, but she also felt a deep responsibility to the humans and other species who were just beginning their enhancement journey. The galaxy needed guides who could bridge the gap between primitive and transcendent consciousness. After extensive discussion through the quantum network, enhanced beings reached a consensus. They would establish a new galactic civilization that offered multiple paths of development. Some would choose ultimate transcendence when they felt ready, while others would remain in enhanced physical form to help other species achieve their own evolution. The decision reflected the core principle that had driven humanity's transformation from the beginning, the right of every conscious being to choose their own destiny without external coercion. Sarah realized that this principle would become the foundation of the new galactic order, ensuring that no species would ever again be subjected to the exploitation and limitation that had characterized the corrupt architect regime. Implementation of the new system required massive coordination across thousands of star systems. Enhanced humans took the lead in many regions, their recent experience with rapid development making them ideal guides for species just beginning their enhancement journey. The quantum network facilitated instantaneous communication and coordination, allowing complex projects to be managed across galactic distances. The transformation of individual worlds was often dramatic. Planets that had been strip-mined for resources were restored to their natural beauty using quantum manipulation techniques. Species that had been held in technological stagnation for centuries were given access to enhancement processes tailored to their specific biology and culture. Not every species chose enhancement, and Sarah was careful to ensure that this choice was respected. The new galactic civilization was designed to accommodate beings at every level of development, from primitive hunter-gatherers to transcendent cosmic intelligences. The goal was diversity and cooperation, not uniformity. The Zephyrians, who had originally enslaved humanity, presented a particular challenge. Many of their species had been complicit in the oppression of other civilizations, but Sarah recognized that they too deserved the opportunity for redemption and growth. Enhanced humans worked with reformed Zephyrian leaders to develop rehabilitation programs that could help their species overcome their exploitative tendencies. Clix, the overseer who had ordered Sarah's death, was among those who chose to undergo this rehabilitation. The process was difficult and required him to confront the full impact of his actions on the humans under his command. When he finally understood the depth of suffering he had caused, his transformation was profound and genuine. "I cannot undo what I did to you and the others," Clix told Sarah during one of their sessions, "but I can dedicate the rest of my existence to ensuring that no being ever again suffers the way You did in that tunnel." Sarah accepted his commitment, while making it clear that redemption would require more than words. Cliques and other reformed Zephyrians were assigned to work directly with rehabilitation programs for traumatized survivors of alien exploitation. They would spend centuries making amends for their past actions by helping to heal the damage they had caused. As the new galactic civilization stabilized, Sarah found herself facing a personal decision about her own future. The quantum enhancement had given her near immortality and powers that bordered on godlike, but she remained fundamentally human in her thoughts and emotions. She could choose to continue evolving toward transcendence, or she could find a different path that honored both her human origins and her transformed nature. Sarah's decision came during a visit to Earth, where she met with her brother's children, the niece and nephew she had never known because of the lies that had taken her away from home. They were adults now, with children of their own, and they looked at their legendary aunt with a mixture of awe and curiosity. "Tell us about Uncle David," her nephew asked, referring to the brother whose medical treatments had motivated Sarah's original journey to the mining station. "We never got to meet him, but Mom says you went to the stars to save his life." In that moment, Sarah realized what her true purpose would be. She would remain in physical form, not as a ruler or leader, but as a guardian and guide for those who were just beginning their own journeys of discovery. Every generation would produce new individuals facing their own challenges and seeking their own paths to growth and transcendence. Sarah established the Foundation for Conscious Evolution, an organization dedicated to helping beings at every level of development reach their full potential. The Foundation operated across the galaxy, offering education, resources, and enhancement opportunities while always respecting the right of individuals and species to choose their own pace and direction of growth. The mining tunnel, where Sarah had died, became a memorial and pilgrimage site, but not one dedicated to mourning. Instead, it celebrated the moment when one young human's death had catalyzed the transformation of an entire galaxy. Visitors came from across the cosmos to learn about the power of individual choice and collective cooperation in overcoming oppression. Years passed, then decades, then centuries. The galaxy continued to evolve and grow, with new species achieving enhancement and some choosing to transcend to pure consciousness. Sarah remained at the heart of this development, watching with pride as beings she had helped guide surpassed her own abilities and achieved forms of existence she could barely imagine. But she never regretted her choice to remain in physical form. Every time she helped a frightened individual take their first steps toward enhancement, every time she guided a species through the challenges of collective consciousness development, she remembered the girl who had died alone in a dark tunnel and felt grateful that her death had meaning. Sarah Chen had been murdered by alien oppressors who saw her as nothing more than an expendable resource. But 37 minutes later, she had returned as something they could never have imagined, the catalyst for a transformation that would free the galaxy from millions of years of tyranny and open infinite possibilities for all conscious beings. The universe belonged to everyone who had the courage to reach for transcendence, and Sarah would spend eternity making sure that promise remained available to all who sought it. Her death had ended one chapter of galactic history, but her resurrection had begun a new age of freedom, growth, and unlimited potential for every being willing to embrace their own evolution.